Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something maybe a bit more subtle than usual.
Yeah. What do we got?
It's this really interesting article by Tony Feghali called Real Success Feels Quiet.
Oh, I saw that one. Yeah. Quiet. That definitely stands out in today's world.
Exactly. It's pushing back against the usual ways we measure success. You know, the big numbers, the follower counts, the revenue
Right.
charts.
The external stuff, the stuff you can easily point to.
Yeah. And instead, it asks, well, what does success actually feel like deep down when you're in the thick of building something you care about?
That's a powerful question because we hear so much about what success looks like, the achievements, the milestones, but not nearly enough about the internal experience, the actual, emotional reality of it. It feels like a much-needed perspective shift.
Totally. So the article kicks off by sort of listing the common answers we give when asked what success looks like.
The usual suspects, I imagine.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Revenue, reach, recognition, maybe a packed schedule, things like that. Stuff that looks impressive from the outside.
Makes sense. That's the narrative we're usually sold.
But then Feghali makes this pivot. He asks, okay, but how does achieving that stuff, or maybe working towards it, actually feel?
And the answers are different, I bet.
Completely different. Things like feeling less pressure, or I can breathe, smoother, peaceful, even just knowing I'm building the right thing.
Wow. Yeah, that's a real disconnect from the external metrics, isn't it? Peacefulness versus, say, hitting $1 million in revenue.
Exactly. So what do you think explains that gap? Why can something look successful but feel, well, not so great, or at least not peaceful?
Well, I think a lot of those external markers, they often tap into this need for validation, proving something to the world, maybe even to ourselves.
Okay, chasing approval.
Kinda. Whereas those internal feelings, peace, calm, flow, they seem to point more towards alignment, like a deep sense that what you're doing is congruent with who you are and what you value.
So one is maybe more about performance, the other about authenticity.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. The external can be a show, but the internal feeling, that sense of peace, that's harder to fake. It suggests maybe real success isn't about the trophies, but that quiet confidence you have while you're building.
And this ties right into Feghali's main point, I think. He says, success is about how it feels while you're building it. And he links that quiet, calm feeling directly to clarity.
Ah, clarity. Yes. That makes a lot of sense.
How so? How does being clear about your goals or direction lead to that quieter experience he describes?
Well, think of clarity like having a really good map and compass on a hike. When you know where you're going and, crucially, why, your steps become more intentional. You're less likely to waste energy threshing around or second-guessing every turn. You can just focus on the path ahead.
So less mental noise, less frantic energy.
Exactly. And the opposite, which the article implies, is that loud success. Maybe you're incredibly busy, your calendar's full, things might even look good on paper.
Right, lots of activity.
But inside, there's this low hum of anxiety or dissatisfaction because you lack that fundamental clarity. You're moving, but are you moving in the right direction? Is it aligned with your core purpose? That lack of clarity creates noise.
That leads perfectly into these contrasts he uses. Movement versus direction, traction versus trust. Can you unpack those a little? How can we be busy, get traction, but still lack direction and trust?
Okay, yeah, those are powerful pairs. So movement is just, activity, doing stuff, being busy, sending emails, having meetings, posting online.
Okay, keeping the wheel spinning.
Right. And traction is maybe seeing some results from that movement, getting likes, collecting contacts, maybe closing small deals. It feels like you're getting somewhere.
Seems positive, right?
It can be, but then you contrast it with direction and trust. Direction is knowing the ultimate destination, the why behind all the movement. It's the purpose guiding the activity.
That compass point.
Exactly. And trust. Trust is that deeper internal belief, believing in the value of what you're building, trusting your own judgment, feeling grounded in your path even when things get tough.
So you could have lots of movement and traction maybe driven by external pressures or just the habit of being busy?
Or fear of missing out.
Right. But without that clear direction and that internal trust, it can all feel, well, a bit hollow, unsatisfying.
Precisely. It's like running hard on a treadmill. Lots of movement, the numbers on the display, traction might look good, but you're not actually going anywhere meaningful according to your own internal map.
That makes sense. And Feghali argues that when you do find that clarity, that direction and trust, something shifts. He calls it a softening effect.
I like that phrase, softening.
Yeah. He suggests decisions become easier. Saying yes feels cleaner. Saying no feels necessary, not like you're missing out. The work just seems to fit better.
It's like that clarity acts as a natural filter, doesn't it? It helps you see what truly matters for your direction so you can let go of the rest. The noise fades.
And you need less performance. He emphasizes honest progress over putting on a show.
Exactly. Because when you're clear and you trust your path, you don't need the external validation quite so much. The progress itself, even if it's quiet or slow, feels meaningful. The need to constantly project success often stems from a lack of that internal grounding.
So this leads us to define quiet success as something built intentionally. It's about consciously choosing what matters, protecting your time and energy for it.
And leading from a place of purpose, not just chasing performance metrics or trying to impress others.
And the implication is that this approach isn't just about the work feeling better. It actually impacts your whole life, right? Your well-being.
Absolutely. The article suggests it affects how you sleep, how clearly you think, the quality of your decisions both in and out of work. When your work is aligned with your core values and purpose, it stops being this separate, draining thing and becomes more integrated, more sustainable.
It feeds you instead of just depleting you.
Yeah, something like that. It's about the harmony during the building process, not just hoping for some future payoff after burning yourself out.
Feghali also makes a point about resisting the pressure to just scale for the sake of scaling. Building bigger isn't always better.
Right. He advocates for building something that genuinely reflects who you are, your values, and the way you actually want to lead and operate. It's a call for authenticity in the structure of our work itself.
So it's okay if your version of success doesn't look like the standard hyper-growth model.
More than, okay, it's potentially better if that model doesn't align with your definition of a successful life and work. It's about defining success on your own terms, not just adopting someone else's definition wholesale.
Which I think is really relevant for anyone listening who feels maybe a bit overwhelmed by the constant push for more, more, more.
Definitely. It gives permission to prioritize depth, meaning, and sustainability over just sheer size or speed.
So how do we cultivate this? The article mentions creating mental space, focusing, listening to your own inner voice. How does that internal work lead to this quieter success?
Well, it seems foundational, really. In our incredibly noisy, distraction-filled world, you actively have to create quiet to even hear yourself think.
Carve out the space.
Yeah, you need that mental space to reflect, to check in with your internal compass, to understand what truly matters to you, separate from all the external shoulds and have-tos.
So it's about tuning out the external noise to tune into your own signal.
Exactly. That's where the clarity comes from. That's how you find your direction to build that trust. It's an internal practice that fuels the external actions. Without that inner quiet, you're just reacting to the loudest voice.
So wrapping this up, the core idea seems to be that despite all the societal pressure, all the noise about what success should look like, real sustainable success has its own rhythm.
A quieter rhythm.
Yeah, it feels calm, it feels peaceful, it feels aligned, and as Feghali puts it, ultimately it feels like you.
Precisely. It shifts the focus from purely external accomplishments to the quality of your internal experience while you're pursuing those goals. It's the feeling, not just the finish line.
It's a really different way to think about achievement. So for you listening, it might be worth reflecting on the pace and the sound of your own work right now.
Yeah. Does it feel loud, frantic, pressured, maybe a bit scattered? Or does it have moments of that quiet, feeling focused, purposeful, peaceful?
And if it feels mostly loud, maybe ask yourself, what's one small step you could take, maybe even this week, to create a little more mental space, to dial down the noise just a bit?
Yeah, just to check in with that inner compass. It doesn't have to be a huge overhaul.
Exactly. It's really about asking that fundamental question the article raises. Beyond the metrics and the external validation, what does success truly feel like to me?
Question worth sitting with. Definitely.